This weekend, I'm taking 4 different short-haul economy flights with British Airways. We'll be seeing what the economy experience is like in 2024, how consistent the onboard service is, and given that BA has recently boasted a significant reduction in the number of delays, we'll be putting that to the test over a busy Easter weekend period. Along the way, we'll also be staying at 3 different hotels, including the Sofitel at Heathrow Airport, and we'll also check out a few airport lounges, including the brand new Aspire Lounge at Newcastle International, plus the BA lounges at Heathrow Terminal 5. Journey number 1 was from Newcastle down to Heathrow. We actually arrived at the airport way earlier than we needed to be. We just happened to be ready to go quite early and decided that rather than waiting around at home, we may as well get to the airport and get to the new lounge. After arriving, we made our way through fast track security due to our silver status. Unfortunately, even though we were in fast track and even though the airport was really quiet, it took absolutely ages to get through security. The new scanners are set up, but just not enough staff to man them. And once through security, we made our way straight to the Aspire Lounge, which has been undergoing some renovation the last few months. Because of our silver status, we were able to enter into the new Lux area. This is where the former BA Lounge used to be based in Newcastle before that closed down. Aspire have now taken over that lounge, as well as redecorating and expanding their existing lounge. It's a really nice space, it's really modern, nicely decorated, and a really nice relaxing place for us to start off the trip. And after grabbing a seat, we made our way to see what kind of food and drink was on offer. There's a pretty basic hot food buffet, as well as some salad, charcuterie and a little bit of cheese. In terms of drinks, there's a few soft drinks on tap, there's free pour spirits, which is a big improvement from what used to be in the old Aspire Lounge, and there's also beer, and there's also some brand new coffee machines. I grabbed myself some pasta, some garlic bread, cheese and meat, and a rum and coke. And then followed that up with a small dessert of a little chocolate muffin and some strawberries, and then a course of cheese. The food was all fairly basic, but absolutely nice enough. And I rounded it all off with a Bailey's hot chocolate. If the food and drinks on offer aren't that appealing, there was also menus available at the table which had a few additional extras that you could pay more for, so a few cocktails, about £5 each, Prosecco as well, not included unfortunately. And there was also a food menu where you could order some more substantial food offerings too. But overall, a good lounge experience and vastly improved from what it used to be, so really happy with this. And after around 3 hours relaxing in the lounge, it was finally time to board. Once again, our silver status came in handy as it meant we were able to be one of the first on board. And this is actually a really good benefit on the short-haul economy flights. The flights are often really full, loads of people have big carry-on luggage, so you want to be able to make use of the overhead storage, particularly given that we're in the exit row, we need to put our bags up there. Seats are configured in a 3-3 on the A320, and we were in one of 2 exit rows. The legroom here is very decent, and there's a good amount of stuff you can fit in the pocket without impeding on this. Looking elsewhere around the seat, you've got a decent sized tray table. And then above the seat you have individual air vents and the call button, as well as a reading light. In one of the seat pockets was the High Life Cafe menu. This covers the food and drink that you can purchase. However, for shorter flights like the one we had today, this didn't tend to get offered. It's great having the seat by the window for the view, but one of the downsides is this armrest. It's just a bit too narrow and my arm would drop off it. Between the seats there's power, including a USB and a universal outlet, and the seat also has a nice adjustable headrest. It was a little bit wet outside in Newcastle, but nothing too bad. However, due to really adverse weather in Heathrow, particularly strong winds, our departure was delayed quite significantly, so we were actually sat around on the plane for quite some time before takeoff. And in fairness to BA, they did actually warn us about this as early as the evening before. They even offered that we could move on to an earlier flight if available. We weren't sure if we would be able to make that earlier flight. We did actually try and get ready for it just so we'd have that option. We didn't get ready quite in time, but we did end up making it to the airport quite early. But eventually, after around maybe 45 minutes sat on the runway, we were finally on our way. Shortly after we reached altitude, the onboard service started. In economy or Eurotraveller, you're offered a small bottle of water alongside a small snack. There used to be standard items you get on every flight, but BA have started mixing it up, and actually on all 4 flights we took this weekend we were offered different things. On this flight the choice was a small rocky chocolate bar or some crisps. Both myself and Kelly went for the chocolate bar. You know, it's not the most exciting complimentary food and drink, but I do really appreciate that even on a short haul economy flight, BA do still at least offer something. As we made our way towards London, we started to get some pretty good views out the window, and we had plenty of opportunities to try and see some of the London sights, as we did have to circle around for quite a bit until we got good enough weather, or at least a good enough slot to be able to go into land. I did quite enjoy looking out the window, trying to spot as many famous London landmarks as I could. A top tip for this would be, if you are flying down from Newcastle, London, try and sit on the right hand side of the plane if you can, and then going in the other direction, try and sit on the left if you want to get the best views. And eventually we were ready to make our way down for what was quite a rocky landing going through the wind. The camera doesn't really do it justice here. We were rocking side to side quite a bit, but you can't really tell it too much on this. But eventually we made it down to the ground, nice and safe. After we did land, we had a bit more of a weight on the ground. We taxied to a remote stand, and I think there was an issue getting the steps sorted for us, and then it took them a while to get a bus over to us as well. So we were sat waiting around for quite a while, but not too bad. But we weren't too excited about having to go outside to get on the bus. And that was flight number 1 done. So we did end up having a delay of just over an hour, but to be honest, given the weather situation, can't really blame BA for that one. Through arrivals, we made our way over to the Sofitel. It's really easy to find, you just go down the list from arrivals and you make your way to this walkway. The whole way over is covered, it is kind of attached to the airport terminal itself, so you don't need to go anywhere, you can just walk over. Really convenient location. It does tend to be a bit more expensive than other nearby airport hotels, but the convenience you get being right at the terminal I think is worth paying a lot of the time. We booked this whole trip as part of a BA holiday, so all of the flights that we're doing, plus the 3 hotels, are all included on the one itinerary. And whilst it's not always the case, I have tended to find that it is cheaper to book things that way. I've in particular found that adding the airport hotel at the start of a trip doesn't seem to add that much to the cost of my booking. The rooms themselves are nicely furnished, and we had a good amount of space in the room. Slightly dated in some features, for example, the only outlets we could see were over on the desk, there wasn't anything by the bedside tables really for charging. Something that was a nice touch is that we were actually upgraded at check-in to a room with additional facilities, so we did have the coffee pots there, and there was also a fully stocked fridge where everything was actually included, so although we were arriving quite late and leaving first thing, we didn't really take advantage of that, but if we wanted to have a drink from there, it would have all been free. And there's a pretty decent bathroom with a nice shower, and there were some additional amenities included as well. After a good night's sleep in what was a really comfy bed, we made our way over to the terminal the next morning. Our departure was around 7 AM today, so it was quite useful just staying somewhere really close to the airport so we weren't having far to commute, and it just meant we could have a little bit longer in bed and could just head straight over to Terminal 5 for our second flight. This one going from Heathrow to Belgrade. Really quickly through fast track security and over to the lounge. We'd often prefer the B Gates lounge, but looking at the boards on the way over today, we did actually notice that it was meant to be quieter in the South Lounge, so that's where we went. We didn't stay in this lounge for too long because we'd arrived not too long before our flight. But we did have time to get a good bit of breakfast and a coffee just to wake ourselves up a bit and get ready for the day. We then saw the boarding announcement that we would be departing from the C gates today, so I guess going to the B gates lounge might have been the best call after all. There is a train that takes people over to the C gates, but we prefer to use this walkway. And we made our way over to the gates. Boarding started not long after we got there, which was great. Although there was the whole usual thing of everyone crowding around the area even though it wasn't their time to board. We were getting back on an E320, so the same type of plane we flew down on. And once again we've gone for the exit row, this time on the left hand side. Not too much more to say about the seat other than the fact that weirdly I actually preferred being in the middle seat for this flight. It wouldn't usually be my choice, but like I said before about that armrest at the window seat, I just don't really like it, so actually being in the middle and having both armrests is much better. Usually if I'm sat at the window, then I'd want to give Kelly that armrest so she can kind of lean away from the person next to her, because you've got to give the person in the middle seat the armrest, right? But then that left me at the window with half an armrest, so I'd probably rather just be in the middle, have both armrests, even if I do have someone else next to me. Takeoff was on time, maybe a few minutes late, but we were soon on our way and into the sky. As with the last flight, as soon as we reached altitude, the onboard service started. The snack options this time around were digestive biscuits or an oat bite. I went for the former, Kelly the latter, and I also had a Coke Zero that somehow found its way into my bag from the lounge. A couple of things to mention that I didn't on the previous flight. Wi-Fi was available, but at cost. And I did check out the bathroom, which was, quite a small space as you might expect. Fairly basic, but ultimately clean and had everything I needed, so no complaints there. And in what felt like no time, we were landing into Belgrade. So yeah, flight number 2 was good. Everything ran on time, the crew were friendly, and I was comfy the whole time, so can't really ask for much more than that on an economy flight, really. In Belgrade, we decided to stay at the Moxy, and on arrival we were given a welcome drink, and also supposedly a room upgrade. To be honest, it was quite a small room, so I'm not sure how much of an upgrade this really was. I can't really remember exactly what room we'd booked, but it was nice enough, and I think for a short weekend trip, we were only there for one night. We didn't really need anything bigger or fancier than that. We just dropped off our bags and went straight out to see the sights. Belgrade really impressed us. It definitely helped that the temperature was kind of mid to high 20s and we were flying over from quite a cold UK. But there was plenty of beautiful architecture, loads to see. The food was really good, good drinks as well, really cheap and affordable. We had some great cocktails that were less than a £5. So yeah, if it's not on your radar, I really recommend checking it out. It's a destination BA picked up last year and it was only announced to go up until the end of March, but they have extended that into this summer as well. The time of the outbound flight as well, although it was an early start for us, it did just mean that first day we did have quite a lot of time there, and considering we were actually only there for one night, we really wanted to make the most of that time. The next day we were flying over to Budapest on an Air Serbia ATR 72600, but I will be featuring that in a separate video on the channel. So make sure you subscribe if you're interested to see what that experience is like. In Budapest we stayed at the Mamaison Andrassy hotel. It was a great location, not too far from the thermal baths, and there was a handy metro stop not too far away. The room itself, we were really happy when we first walked in. It was a nice size, seemed to have a decent bathroom and a balcony as well that went through the doors in the bathroom. However, we soon found out that the aircon wasn't working. The room temperature was 26 degrees the entire time. We were absolutely boiling. We did mention it to management. They just said, oh well, it's not summer yet, so we haven't fixed it. They brought us a fan, which didn't really help because it only had a 1 hour time before it would switch off, but oh well. Thankfully we weren't in the hotel too much because we were too busy having a brilliant time exploring Budapest, just seeing all the sights, enjoying the room bars. If you haven't been to Budapest, it's a brilliant city. I've been a few times now and highly recommend it. And after 2 great nights in Budapest, we were back at the airport for BA flight number 3 of the weekend. For this one, we'll be flying from Budapest back over to Heathrow. Security was nice and quiet and didn't take too long to get through, and then we made our way over to find a lounge. There were 2 main lounges right next to each other, the Platinum Lounge and the Plaza Premium. We did have the option of the Platinum Lounge via Priority Pass. However, we decided to go for the Plaza Premium Lounge through our BA Silver status instead, as the food seemed to have a better food offering available. Both lounges though have great views out to the tarmac. And the breakfast was pretty good. I remember the scrambled egg in particular actually being really nice, which feels like a real rarity at an airport lounge or just a buffets in general really. There were also some cakes, fruit, salady bits, some sandwiches, free pour spirits, beer, wine, all the other drinks as well. I decided to follow up my initial breakfast with a wrap and a little chocolate donut. They had these mini donuts there, jam and chocolate ones, so helped myself to plenty of those whilst looking out at the planes. Always really appreciate a lounge that has views out to see the planes coming and going as well. And after this Qatar plane departed, it made room for our BA flight to land and get over to the stand. And it was really nice to see it arrive and park right here, because it confirmed to us that we're not going to have to go too far to go board the plane. I think I'm always a bit annoying to Kelly when the gate gets called, because I'm always really keen to just get there straight away because I'm paranoid about missing the flight. Whereas she'd rather not rush over there, just enjoy the time in the lounge and not have to go join the queue or joining all the people just stood around the gate. But thankfully, with this one being so nearby, I was a bit more relaxed and able to stay there for a bit longer. Literally just straight down the stairs from the lounge entrance and you're getting onto the plane. And finally we had a different type of aircraft. This was an A319. Main difference here is there's only one exit row, which thankfully we were in again, this time on the right hand side. Other differences to note, you'll notice between the seats there's no in-seat power available, and there was also no Wi-Fi on this one either. But still a comfy seat with plenty of leg room. And it also still had the individual air vents, which I always appreciate. And we actually had another on-time departure. It's a bit of a shame that this continues to surprise me. It probably says a lot about the state of BA the last few years that I just always assume I'm going to be delayed. But I do think the last few months, the flights we've had, generally speaking, have been fine. I think the only delays we have had have been things like that flight down from Newcastle initially where there was the bad weather. But the journey's not over just yet. The toilet setup is slightly different than the A319. Similar amount of space though, it's just off to the side rather than at the back of the plane. The snack I opted for on this one was some crinklies, which were very good. A bit gutted though, they described the options as crisps or a biscuit, so I went for the crisps. Then I saw what the biscuit was. It turned out to be this massive chocolate chip cookie the person next to me got, so I was very jealous of that. Definitely made the wrong call with that one. Some more brilliant views of London on the way in. Once again, when you're flying into London, I do tend to find that being on the right hand side of the plane tends to work out better. I don't know if that's for all routes, but it does seem to be most of the time that we get a better view on the right hand side of the plane. And we landed nicely on time after a slightly early departure. However, bit of a caveat to that. Heathrow being Heathrow, there were of course a few issues. The jet bridge was broken, so they had to get some stairs for us. And even though we were parked right next to the terminal, they wouldn't let us walk over, so they had to get a bus for us as well. So we had to wait for that bus to arrive to take us what would have been about a 30-second walk, but you know, we got there in the end. Once off the plane, we made our way through connections. We'd landed into Terminal 3 and our next flight was going to be from Terminal 5 going back up to Newcastle, so we'd have to get the bus service over to T5. We just narrowly missed one bus when we got there, so we ended up waiting about 10 minutes for the bus to arrive. Getting into Terminal 5, we then had to go through immigration and security. We were quite pleased to see that the fast track section seems to have been opened up finally, so we were soon through security and made our way over to the lounge. We went back to the South Lounge again, as weirdly it was shown as quieter than both the North Lounge and the B-Gates Lounge again. I don't know if it's a seasonal thing or what. I mean, I would have thought Easter weekend would be busy, but it was very strange seeing the lounge so quiet twice in a row. Maybe since the furniture change early in the year, it's just maybe improved things a bit. Fingers crossed it'll stay that way. But we had a nice few hours just getting lots of food, well I did anyway, and a few drinks before we went back to get our last flight. And once again, for the fourth flight in a row, we weren't waiting around for long at the gates, and we were actually boarding on time. We were back on an A320 for this one, once again in the exit row, but this time we had the middle and the aisle. We weren't able to get the window seat, unfortunately. However, someone must have either moved their seats or not boarded, because as we were sat waiting with an empty seat next to us, watching people go by, trying to figure out who was going to come and sit next to us, we got the announcement that boarding was complete. So we had the road to ourselves. And you know, as much as it's nice to sit next to each other, it's even nicer to have a bit more space to stretch out. So immediately Kelly moved over to the window, and I stayed in the aisle to give us the middle seat free. For this one, I decided to give the oat bite a try. I can't remember what the other option was, to be honest, but it didn't sound too exciting, and I thought I'd try out the oat bite thing. Not for me, to be honest. Probably my least favourite of the four snacks from all the flights, but oh well. Still nice to be offered something. And the flight flew by. We were really comfy the whole time, obviously having the extra legroom helped, but we actually arrived early, which, again, just to reiterate, I've really come to expect delays with BA, but they have impressed me over this weekend. 3 out of 4 flights were on time / early. There were a few hiccups along the way, obviously we had that initial delay, but that was down to the weather. But it does feel like there is some truth to their claims that they're improving that service. Hope you enjoyed the video and found it useful. Thanks so much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.